Hello, this is Aston back with another macroeconomic video, and this time we're gonna continue about where we left off. So, last video I spoke about a fixed Y. Essentially what that means is a fixed GDP in a closed economy. Okay, but what does that mean? What does the Y bar mean? A lot of people think, like me, the first time I saw it, I thought it was mean, I thought it was average, but no. That over bar is actually exogenous. It means fixed, it means predetermined. That's what it means. You might be wondering, okay, Aston, what's exogenous? Okay, recall from the very first macroeconomic video that I made. I talked about endothermic, exothermic, endogenous, exogenous. Now, if you take chemistry or any kind of science, you should know that endothermic means it essentially absorbs the weather or temperature around it or something, if I'm not wrong. And exothermic means it gives off temperature or something. Now, let's take an example. Campfire, exothermic, gives off heat. A snowman in the sun, endothermic, absorbs the heat. Okay, cool. So, in the same way, endo means inside, exo means outside. Okay, so exogenous means that it's a variable that's not explained within the model, while an endogenous variable is something that's explained through the model. So now you'll think, okay, in a closed economy, y is equal to c plus I plus g, not x minus m, because there's no trade, no world trade going on. So, okay, over here, y bar, or should I say fixed y, is equal to fixed consumption plus not fixed investment, or should I say endogenous investment, plus fixed government spending. Okay, now before you ask the core question of why the hell is investment endogenous and not exogenous like everything else, let's first hold that thought for me. You're not holding it, bro. You have to hold it in your hand. So hold that thought for me and I'll explain to you consumption and then investment and then why the hell I wrote R as a thermostat over here. First, let's talk about consumption. Consumption is, of course, your expenditure in the economy. How much do you, as a consumer, buy, purchase? So, we can say that consumption is equal to autonomous consumption plus the marginal propensity to consume multiplied by y minus t. Y minus t is basically your total output or your GDP minus the tax rate. And that, my friends, that's your disposable income. It's essentially how much you earn, because remember, in the circular flow of income for a closed economy, income is equal to expenditure, which is equal to output, which means that y minus t is your disposable income. How much you earn minus the tax rate is your disposable income. Okay, cool. Marginal propensity to consume. What is that? So the marginal propensity to consume is how much your consumption rises by, how much your consumption rises if your disposable income increases by 1 unit. 1 unit usually means $1, €1, 1 yen, etc. You get the point. Autonomous consumption is how much you consume when disposable income is 0. You still have to buy necessities and you have to pay something. I don't know. I'm not going to give you an example right now. I'm a little bit exhausted. So if we plot this into a curve with consumption being on the y-axis and your disposable income being on the x-axis, dependent and dependent variables, that you can see that the y-intercept is the autonomous consumption, while the gradient is the MPC, marginal propensity to consume. And as you can see, the marginal propensity to consume is between 0 and 1. I'm going to call it MPC from now on because it's kind of like a tongue twister saying it more than like 5 times. Okay, now let's move on to investment. Investment is equal to I over bar. Not mean, it means autonomous investment, fixed investment, multiplied by B into R. B is essentially the sensitivity of the investment, while R is, of course, the rate of interest. Very important. And as you can see, it's downward sloping. This means that there's a negative correlation, while over here in the consumption curve, there's a positive correlation, which I think makes sense because as your disposable income rises, you will obviously spend a bit more, which can be in terms of quality, it can be in terms of volume. You might just buy more food, you might just buy more movie tickets, go out more, or you might buy higher quality food, maybe organic, maybe like those farm produced whatever eggs. Pretty damn good, by the way. You should get them. Those eggs, I don't know, man, the yolk is just more orange. So if you have the money, please consider buying them. Not supporting small little farms. Always helps. While over here, investment is downward sloping because R is the interest rate, which essentially means the cost of borrowing and the reward for saving. So if the cost of borrowing is higher, that means the profitability of the investment will drop. So of course, they are negatively correlated because, as you can see, if the interest rate is super high, then of course there will be less investment. But if it's lower, more investment, etc. Okay, cool. Now let's get back to the main question. Why is I endogenous? Okay, cool. So we take I as a function of R, which is investment as a function of the interest rate. So we call R, or at least I call R, a thermostat. So what that means is if R is too high, that means that there will be less investment. What does that mean? Firms produce too little. So that means that there is less planned expenditure than there is total output. Basically AE, that's what it stands for. AE is planned expenditure. So that means that AE will be less than Y. So that means that firms will start overproducing, which is bad because then next year they'll start reducing their output and eventually they'll reach equilibrium. This cools down the economy. While on the other hand, if R is too low, there's going to be a lot more investment. Then there's going to be a lot more planned expenditure within the economy. And it's going to be more than your GDP. What that will mean is that firms will underproduce, which means that they're going to start increasing their output more and more. That will start overheating the economy and eventually goes back and forth, so they'll reach an equilibrium at some point. This is, it's a big thing to take in because I never, like in Keynesian, like Y, like I said last video, is flexible, prices are sticky, wages are sticky, but here it's all fixed. That's because it's a model. Models are, like I said, toy economies. They're not supposed to be perfect. They're just supposed to shed light on different topics. And in this case, we're shedding light on why the interest rate or how the interest rate influences the entire economy as a whole, in this model at least. We're going to go more into detail about the interest especially. So stay tuned for that. All right, bye.